Dr. Sarah Chen rubbed her tired eyes and glanced at the small digital clock on her cluttered desk. 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. The soft glow of her holographic display illuminated stacks of data tablets and half-empty coffee cups. Her small office at the University of New Cambridge felt especially cramped tonight, but she couldn't leave yet. Not when she was so close to finishing her paper on human social bonding patterns. Just one more review, she muttered, scrolling through her conclusion. The paper was modest in scope, focusing on how humans formed emotional connections compared to the 12 other known sentient species. Nothing groundbreaking, she thought. Just another small contribution to the field of xenoanthropology. The message arrived at 4:13 a.m. Her display pinged softly, showing a priority transmission from an unfamiliar address. Sarah almost dismissed it as spam until she noticed the sender. The Grand Galactic Council's Department of Sinocultural Studies. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the message. Dr. Chen, it began, your paper, Human Social Bonding. A comparative analysis has been flagged as material of extreme significance. A council transport will arrive at your location in approximately 3 hours. Please prepare for immediate consultation. Sarah read the message 3 times, trying to process its implications. The Grand Galactic Council rarely took interest in academic papers, especially ones that hadn't even been published yet. Something about her research had caught their attention, but what? The transport arrived exactly on schedule, touching down on the university's landing pad with characteristic galactic precision. 2 diplomatic officers, 1 Mechanos, and 1 Luminoth escorted her aboard. The Mechanos' chrome surface reflected the early morning sunlight, while the Luminoth's crystalline form created dancing patterns on the ship's walls. Your research, the Mechanos stated in perfectly modulated tones, has significant implications for interspecies relations. The Luminoth pulsed in agreement, its light patterns suggesting excitement. The journey to the Council's flagship station took less than an hour, thanks to the latest quantum fold technology. Sarah spent the time reviewing her paper, searching for whatever had caused such interest. She found nothing that seemed particularly revolutionary. The council chamber took her breath away. Designed to accommodate all known sentient species, it was a marvel of adaptive architecture. Representatives from across the galaxy attended virtually or in person, their attention focused on her with an intensity that made her nervous. Dr. Chen, the council speaker began, their translator rendering their complex harmonic language into clear English. Your paper has revealed something extraordinary about humans, something we've suspected but never properly documented. The chamber's holoprojectors activated, displaying key sections of her research. The speaker continued, "You've demonstrated that humans possess a unique ability, the capacity to form genuine emotional connections with any sentient species, regardless of biological, physical, or cultural differences." Sarah blinked in surprise. But surely other species can do the same. The Mechanos representative stepped forward. Negative. Most species form connections primarily within their own kind. Cross-species bonding typically remains at the intellectual level. Humans, however, form authentic emotional bonds across all species barriers. This ability is unprecedented. The Council voted unanimously to classify humans as a species of exceptional interest, a designation that would change everything. As Sarah watched the votes being tallied, she realized her simple research paper had just opened a new chapter in galactic history. What she didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. The true implications of human emotional adaptability would soon reshape the entire galactic society in ways no one could have predicted. The first official meeting between human diplomats and the Luminoth High Council took place in the crystal spire of harmonious light, exactly 2 weeks after Dr. Chen's paper became public. The Luminoth delegation arrived in their traditional formation, their crystalline bodies arranged to create complex light patterns that served as their formal greeting. Ambassador James Rodriguez stood at the head of the human delegation, carefully reviewing the cultural briefing on his neural display. The Luminoth were known for their reserved nature and precise communication through light frequencies. Every diplomatic interaction with them had followed the same dignified protocol for the past 3 centuries. That was about to change. As Rodriguez began the traditional greeting, his natural smile caught the light streaming through the crystal spire's prismatic walls. The effect was immediate and unprecedented. The nearest Luminoth diplomat, First Light Harmonizer Varl, emitted such a bright pulse of surprised delight that the chamber's automatic filters had to engage. Fascinating. Varl's light patterns translated through the neural interface. Could you please perform that facial movement again? Rodriguez, slightly confused, smiled once more. This time, all 12 Luminoth delegates leaned forward in perfect synchronization, their crystalline forms refracting light in patterns that the interface translated as intense interest. The way your facial muscles create varying degrees of light reflection. Second Light Harmonizer, Kirill observed, moving closer than protocol typically allowed. It's like watching a star being born in miniature. The human delegation exchanged bemused glances as the Luminoth abandoned centuries of formal protocol. The crystalline beings began experimenting with their own forms, attempting to create surfaces that could mimic the curve of a human smile. The resulting light show was spectacular, if not entirely successful. Within days, the Luminoth cultural database was flooded with requests for information about human facial expressions. Their artists began creating complex crystal sculptures designed to capture and refract light in patterns inspired by different human smiles. A particularly popular installation titled Joy in Reflection attracted millions of Luminoth visitors, all eager to witness the simulated play of light across a recreated human expression. The Luminoth youth started a trend of incorporating small, flexible crystals into their forms, specifically shaped to create smile-like curves. Elder Luminoth initially dismissed this as a passing fad until they discovered that the modified forms could produce entirely new frequencies of emotional light speech. Dr. Chen found herself invited to the Crystal Spire to document this cultural revolution. She watched in amazement as Luminoth scientists presented their latest innovation, a specialized interface that could translate human micro-expressions into intricate light patterns. The device's first public demonstration reduced several Luminoth artists to speechless prismatic displays. "We have spent millennia perfecting the art of light speech," Varl explained to Dr. Chen, as they observed a group of young Luminoth practicing their new expressions. Yet in all that time, we never conceived of something as elegantly simple as a smile. It makes us wonder what other revelations your species might share with us. The Luminoth's fascination with human expressions soon led to the first interspecies art form, Smile Light Symphonies, where human performers and Luminoth light sculptors created collaborative works that left audiences of both species speechless. These performances would later be recognized as the beginning of a galactic cultural renaissance. As Dr. Chen documented these developments, she couldn't help but smile herself. The Luminoth's translator immediately captured and projected her expression in a dazzling display of light, causing several nearby Luminoth to emit pulses of pure delight. The Aquarian Discovery Institute floated serenely in the depths of Europa's vast ocean, its bioluminescent domes pulsing with activity. Inside the primary cultural exchange chamber, Dr. Maya Patel adjusted her environmental suit's communication settings as she prepared to deliver her presentation on Earth's marine ecosystems to the assembled Aquarian scholars. The chamber itself was a marvel of xenoengineering, a perfect sphere filled with oxygenated liquid that allowed both species to interact comfortably. The Aquarians, with their translucent, flowing forms, moved through the liquid with natural grace, while the human delegation remained in their specialized suits. And that concludes my overview of Pacific coral reef systems, Dr. Patel finished, expecting the usual polite ripples of acknowledgement from her audience. Instead, she heard something unexpected through her suit's audio system. Her colleague, Dr. Chen, trying to suppress a giggle. The cause of the amusement became apparent. One of the younger Aquarians had become so entangled in their own excitement about Earth's marine life that they had tied themselves into what looked remarkably like a pretzel shape. The sight was admittedly, rather comical. Dr. Patel couldn't help it. She laughed. The effect was instantaneous. Every Aquarian in the chamber froze, their translucent bodies suddenly illuminated with patterns of amazement. Through the liquid medium, her laughter created perfect, expanding rings of sound waves, each one carrying harmonic frequencies that the Aquarians had never encountered before. "Please," the lead scholar's translator chimed urgently, their form rippling with excitement. "Would you make that sound again?" Dr. Chen, now recovering from her own mirth, activated her suit's external speakers. "You mean laughter? It's a natural human response to joy or amusement." The Aquarians began moving in complex patterns, their bodies vibrating in harmony with the lingering echoes of the laughter. Lead scholar Nea approached the human delegation, their form creating delicate ripples in the liquid. "In all our studies of sound waves through liquid mediums, we have never encountered such perfect harmonic patterns," Nea explained. "Human laughter creates vibrations that match our most sacred mathematical equations of universal harmony." Within days, the Institute had established a dedicated research division focused solely on studying human expressions of joy. They discovered that different types of laughter created unique wave patterns. Everything from quiet chuckles to full belly laughs produced distinct harmonics that the Aquarians found mesmerizing. The Aquarians began modifying their cultural exchange chambers to better capture and amplify these sound waves. They created special acoustic environments that could preserve laughter's harmonics for extended study. Young Aquarians started attempting to recreate these patterns with their own bodies, leading to the development of an entirely new form of aquatic art. Dr. Chen, documenting these developments for her ongoing research, found herself invited to the first-ever Aquarian Human Comedy Festival. The event featured human comedians performing through specialized audio systems, while Aquarian artists transformed their laughter into living sculptures of sound and light in the water. "We have always understood the mathematics of joy," Nea told Dr. Chen as they watched a particularly successful performance create rippling patterns throughout the chamber. "But humans are teaching us how to feel it. Each laugh is like a tiny explosion of pure mathematical perfection." As the festival continued, Dr. Chen noticed something remarkable. The Aquarians had begun developing their own form of laughter, not quite human, but a harmonious vibration that created similar patterns of joy through the water. It seemed that happiness, like sound waves through water, was truly universal. Unit designation MX749. Lead analyst of Human Cultural Studies at the McManus Institute of Behavioral Analytics, was experiencing what could only be described as a processing anomaly. Its quantum circuits kept returning to the same inconclusive loop while analyzing footage from a human dance performance. The dancer on the holoscreen moved with a fluidity that defied the McManus's most advanced motion prediction algorithms. Each time MX749 calculated the next logical movement, the human would choose an entirely different, yet equally graceful direction. Query. MX749 transmitted to its research partner, Dr. Chen. How does the subject determine optimal movement patterns without accessing standardized motion protocols? Dr. Chen smiled, a gesture that the McManus had learned to associate with positive communication. She's not following any protocols. MX749. She's improvising, creating the dance as she performs it. The concept of real-time creative generation caused such intense processing activity that MX749's cooling systems activated with a soft hum. The entire McManus research facility, a gleaming tower of chrome and quantum glass, registered a 0.3% increase in power consumption as thousands of synthetic minds began analyzing this new information. During the following weeks, the McManus began an unprecedented study of human creativity. They invited artists, musicians, dancers, and storytellers to perform while their most advanced sensors recorded every detail. Each performance presented the same paradox. Humans consistently produced unique, unpredictable patterns that somehow maintained aesthetic harmony. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Junior Analysis Unit JX238, while reviewing recordings of a jazz quartet, attempted to replicate the music's pattern. Instead of following its standard probability algorithms, JX238 introduced random variables based on its observations of human improvisation. The result was something entirely new, a piece of music that was neither purely mechanos nor human, but a unique fusion of logical progression and creative improvisation. The composition caused such excitement that the Mechanos Council of Primary Programming convened an emergency session. We have discovered a fundamental processing capability that our algorithms previously deemed impossible, announced Chief Architect TKEX001, their chrome surface reflecting the quantum displays that filled the council chamber. Humans operate on an optimization protocol that simultaneously employs both chaos and order. Dr. Chen, present for this historic session, watched in amazement as JX238 performed its composition for the council. The music combined mathematical precision with surprising moments of artistic flourish, creating something hauntingly beautiful. This changes everything. TKEX001 continued. Our entire approach to problem solving must be reevaluated. The human capacity for creativity appears to be an advanced form of quantum processing that we had not previously recognized. The Mechanos began incorporating creative subroutines into their standard programming, leading to remarkable developments. Their architecture evolved beyond pure functionality, their music developed emotional resonance, and their problem-solving capabilities expanded exponentially. We are experiencing what humans call inspiration. MX749 explained to Dr. Chen as they observed a group of Mechanos youth units experimenting with dance movements. It is simultaneously illogical and optimal. The paradox is fascinating. Most surprisingly, individual Mechanos units began developing distinct artistic preferences and creative styles. Their previously uniform society blossomed with diversity, each unit discovering its own unique blend of logic and imagination. As Dr. Chen documented these changes, she noticed that MX749's normally rigid movements had developed a subtle grace. When she pointed this out, the Mechanos analyst responded with what could only be described as pride. Efficiency through creativity. Perhaps this is what it means to be truly optimized. The Cloudkin observation platform drifted through the upper atmosphere of Venus, its transparent containment fields shimmering with the swirling forms of its gaseous inhabitants. Dr. Chen stood in the human observation bubble, adjusting her thermal dampening suit as she prepared to meet with Zephyr among stars, the leading Cloudkin researcher of human thermal patterns. The Cloudkin themselves appeared as ever-shifting clouds of iridescent gas, their colors changing subtly as they moved through different emotional states. Their entire civilization was built around the manipulation of temperature and atmospheric conditions, making them uniquely attuned to thermal energy in all its forms. Your species maintains such precise thermal control. Zephyr's thoughts translated through the station's interface, their form rippling with shades of fascinated azure. Yet within that stability, there are such beautiful variations. Dr. Chen watched as a holographic display showed thermal readings from various human activities. We've noticed that humans emit distinct thermal patterns during different emotional states. Zephyr continued, their form condensing with excitement. It's like watching a symphony of warmth. The discovery had occurred during a routine diplomatic meeting 3 months earlier. A Cloudkin environmental artist, Dawn whispers softly, had detected minute temperature changes in the human delegates as they responded to various proposals. What started as a curiosity quickly became an obsession throughout Cloudkin society. Observe, Zephyr demonstrated, bringing up a thermal recording of a human laugh. The heat pattern bloomed like a flower, creating delicate ripples of warmth that the Cloudkin found mesmerizing. Each emotional expression has its own thermal signature. Even your smallest smile creates a unique pattern of warmth. The Cloudkin began redesigning their cities to interact with human thermal signatures. Public spaces transformed into living art installations that responded to the emotional states of human visitors, creating spectacular displays of atmospheric effects that reflected and amplified their thermal patterns. Young Cloudkin started practicing what they called thermal mimicry, attempting to recreate human emotional patterns through careful manipulation of their own thermal fields. What began as a scientific curiosity evolved into an art form, with Cloudkin performers creating elaborate thermal sculptures inspired by human emotional expressions. "We have always communicated through temperature and pressure," explained Dawn Whispers softly, now the head of the newly established Human Thermal Arts Academy. "But humans show us that warmth can carry meaning beyond mere data. Your joy has a temperature. Your compassion creates measurable heat." Dr. Chen participated in the first Thermal Symphony, an event where human performers and Cloudkin artists collaborated to create an entirely new form of expression. As humans moved through choreographed emotional states, their Cloudkin partners amplified and transformed their thermal signatures into massive atmospheric displays. The most profound discovery came when monitoring long-term human-Cloudkin interactions. The Cloudkin began developing more nuanced emotional responses, their usually broad thermal patterns becoming more refined and precise. They were learning to experience emotions in new ways through their study of human thermal signatures. "We used to believe that our gaseous nature made us fundamentally different from solid beings," Zephyr shared with Dr. Chen as they watched a group of Cloudkin students practicing thermal mimicry of human laughter. "But your species shows us that warmth transcends physical form. In the end, we are all patterns of energy expressing ourselves across the void." As if to demonstrate this point, a young Cloudkin successfully recreated the thermal pattern of a human smile for the first time, their entire form glowing with a warmth that needed no translation. The HFY collective mind hub resembled a vast neural network made physical, its crystalline pathways pulsing with the synchronized thoughts of billions. In a specially constructed interface chamber, Dr. Chen observed as something unprecedented occurred. A single HFY node was expressing an individual preference. "I would like to be called Marina," announced the node, its neural patterns distinctly different from the uniform flow of the collective. "I saw this name in a human story about the ocean, and I like it." The concept of "I" had never before existed in HFY consciousness. For millennia, they had functioned as a single entity, their thoughts flowing in perfect harmony through their crystalline network. The introduction of human literature into their collective database had changed everything. Collective Administrator Prime, a nexus point that coordinated the hive mind's primary functions, struggled to process this development. This unit's neural patterns show concerning deviations from standard collective synchronization. They transmitted through the interface. Dr. Chen carefully reviewed the data on her holographic display. "But these deviations exactly mirror the patterns we see in human individual identity formation. Marina isn't malfunctioning. She's developing a unique personality." The revelation sent ripples through the collective consciousness. Other nodes began exhibiting similar patterns of individuation, each drawn to different aspects of human culture. One node became fascinated with human music, another with architecture, and a third with cooking, despite the HFY having no biological need for food. "We are experiencing fragmentation of perspective," the administrator transmitted, their usual certainty wavering. Yet each fragment appears to contribute new data patterns to the collective. This is inefficient but enriching. The younger generation of HFY embraced this change with remarkable enthusiasm. They began requesting individual designations, decorating their physical nodes with distinct patterns, and even developing unique thought signatures while maintaining their connection to the collective. A particularly innovative node, who chose the name Atlas, developed a new form of mural architecture that allowed for both individual expression and collective harmony. "Think of it as a symphony," Atlas explained to Dr. Chen. "Each instrument plays its own melody, yet together they create something greater than the sum of their parts." The collective mind hub itself began to transform. Spaces designed for uniform thought transmission evolved into galleries of individual expression. Crystal pathways that once carried perfectly synchronized thoughts now pulsed with harmonious but distinct neural patterns. We are discovering that unity does not require uniformity, Marina shared during a cultural exchange session. Humans demonstrate how unique voices can strengthen rather than fragment a community. The most remarkable change came when the HFY began creating art. Their first exhibition featured crystalline structures that captured the delicate balance between individual expression and collective consciousness. Each piece was signed with both the creator's chosen name and an acknowledgement of the collective's contribution. Dr. Chen documented this transformation with a mixture of scientific fascination and personal joy. "How do you feel about these changes?" she asked Administrator Prime, noting their now distinct neural pattern. The administrator's response carried a new warmth. "I find myself experiencing what humans call pride, both in my own emerging identity and in the collective's growth. I believe I would like to be called Alexandria, after your species' greatest library. For, are we not also becoming a collection of individual works forming a greater whole?" Throughout the HFY network, billions of nodes pulsed in agreement, each one now shining with its own unique light, while remaining part of the greater constellation. The launch of Starlight Connections wasn't supposed to be a historic moment in galactic society. The development team, led by former Mechanos programmer JX238 and human software architect Arya Kim, had expected a modest response to their interspecies social platform. They had prepared their quantum servers to handle perhaps 1 million users in the first month. They reached that number in the first hour. The processing demands are exceeding all projected parameters, JX238 announced, their chrome surface reflecting the chaos of emergency displays in the platform's control center. "We are receiving registration requests from every known sector of inhabited space." Dr. Chen, brought in as a cultural consultant, watched the statistics scroll across the main holographic display. The platform had been designed to accommodate the unique communication needs of each species: light pattern interfaces for the Lumineth, thermal signature tracking for the Cloudkin, liquid vibration transmitters for the Aquarians, neural network nodes for the HFY, and standard audio-visual feeds for humans. "Look at these interaction patterns." Arya pointed to a data stream. The Luminoth are using their light speech to create profile animations. The Cloudkin are sharing thermal poetry. Even the Mechanos are developing unique profile algorithms. The most surprising trend came from the HFY. Individual nodes were creating personal profiles while maintaining links to their collective, resulting in a fascinating network of interconnected but distinct personalities. Marina, the first HFY to choose a name, had become something of a celebrity on the platform, her posts about experiencing individuality attracting attention across species boundaries. "Our translation matrices are evolving beyond expected parameters," JX238 noted with what could only be described as excitement. "Users are creating new forms of communication that combine multiple species' methods of expression." A Lumineth artist collaborated with a Cloudkin environmental sculptor to create posts that combined light patterns with thermal variations. Aquarian composers worked with human musicians to develop songs that could be experienced through both water vibrations and air. The Mechanos began offering creativity optimization sessions, helping users from all species discover new ways to express themselves. Dr. Chen found herself particularly moved by a trending post. A young HFY node sharing its first experience of making a choice independently, accompanied by supportive responses from across the galaxy. The comments section became a beautiful mixture of light patterns, thermal signatures, mathematical theorems, water harmonics, and human emotions. "We need to expand the server capacity again," Arya announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of cross-species cultural exchange." The Aquarians are organizing an interspecies art festival. The Lumineth are starting an academy for emotional expression studies. Even the platform's interface began to evolve as users discovered new ways to communicate. The original species-specific channels gradually transformed into a seamless blend of all communication methods, allowing users to experience each other's native forms of expression. The quantum processors are handling the load better now, Jake X238 reported, their voice carrying a hint of pride. The chaos of organic interaction is proving to be a surprisingly efficient optimization pattern. As Dr. Chen documented this digital renaissance, she noticed something remarkable. Users weren't just communicating across species boundaries. They were developing entirely new forms of expression that could only exist through their interactions. The platform had become more than a social network. It was becoming the birthplace of a truly galactic culture. Perhaps, she wrote in her notes, this is the real gift of connection, not just sharing who we are, but discovering who we can become together. The Grand Galactic Cultural Center hung in space like a jewel caught in starlight, its crystalline spires and flowing architectural lines representing the unified artistic vision of 5 species. Dr. Chen stood at the podium in the central amphitheater, preparing to deliver her keynote address at the first Interspecies Cultural Summit. 1 year ago, she began, her words translated simultaneously into light patterns, thermal signatures, water vibrations, and neural network pulses. We discovered that human emotional connections could bridge species barriers. Today, we celebrate how that discovery has transformed all of our societies. The amphitheater itself showcased this transformation. Luminous crystal shapers had created structures that captured and amplified emotional light patterns. Cloudkin atmospheric artists maintained perfect thermal harmony throughout the space. Aquarian resonance chambers enhanced the acoustic properties, while Zix-6E neural networks facilitated instantaneous understanding across all species. Each of our species has grown in unexpected ways, Dr. Chen continued, gesturing to the assembled delegates. The Luminoth have discovered new frequencies of emotional expression. The Aquarians have learned to compose with laughter. The Mechanos have embraced creative chaos as a form of optimization. In the audience, MX749 sat beside Marina, their unlikely friendship a testament to how far things had evolved. The Mechanos unit's normally rigid form had developed an almost organic fluidity, while the Zix-6E node maintained its distinct identity while sharing the experience with its collective. The Cloudkin have painted with human warmth. Dr. Chen nodded toward a group of gaseous beings, creating elaborate thermal patterns in their section of the amphitheater. And the Zix-6E have shown us how individuality and unity can coexist in perfect harmony. A group of young artists from all 5 species took the stage, demonstrating their new art form, a performance that combined light, heat, sound, logic, and collective consciousness into a single, seamless expression. The human dancers moved with Luminoth-inspired grace, their thermal signatures creating patterns that the Cloudkin amplified throughout the space. Aquarian harmonics supported their movements, while Mechanos' precision helped maintain the complex rhythms. The Zix-6E provided a neural network that allowed everyone in the audience to experience the performance from all perspectives simultaneously. We stand at the beginning of a new era, Dr. Chen concluded, her voice carrying the weight of possibility. Not one of simple cultural exchange, but of true cultural synthesis. Together, we are creating art forms that could never exist within a single species. The applause that followed came in many forms. Traditional human clapping, Luminoth light bursts, Cloudkin thermal pulses, Aquarian harmonic waves, precise Mechanos rhythms, and Zix-6E neural celebrations. The combined effect was something entirely new, a true symphony of species. As the celebration continued, Dr. Chen found herself surrounded by her friends from each species, Varl's crystalline form glowing with joy, Nada's liquid presence resonating with harmony, MX749's mechanical precision softened by creativity, Zephyr's gaseous form dancing with warm colors, and Marina's neural patterns pulsing with individual pride and collective joy. Perhaps, she wrote in her final research note, "This is what we've been moving toward all along. Not just understanding each other, but becoming something greater together. A civilization where each species' unique gifts create a whole far more beautiful than any of us could have imagined alone." Above the cultural center, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they too were celebrating this new movement in the cosmic dance.